You know what's interesting? A man doesn't stop explaining himself because he has nothing left to say. He stops because he realizes no one was really listening. First, he tries. He explains his side, his intentions, his feelings. He tries to make others understand why he is the way he is. But slowly, something shifts. He sees that most people don't want understanding, they want control. And that's the moment his silence begins. Because when a man finally stops explaining himself, it's not weakness. It's wisdom. It's the moment he decides his peace is worth more than being understood. You've probably been there, trying to explain your actions, your choices, your boundaries over and over again. You tell someone how you feel, they twist it. You defend yourself, they dismiss it. You try to fix things, they call you cold. And one day, something inside you just clicks. You stop. You realize that real men don't waste energy convincing people of their value. They show it through silence, through consistency, through results. That silence? It's not empty. It's powerful. It's the sound of a man who no longer needs validation to feel whole. When a man stops explaining himself, a few things happen, and they change everything. Let's break them down. First, he reclaims his power. When you're constantly explaining, you're living on someone else's terms. You're defending your every move like you're on trial. And that's exhausting, because every explanation is an unconscious request for permission. Please understand me. Please agree with me. Please see my side. But the truth is, you don't need to be understood to be right. You don't need approval to be at peace. You just need clarity about who you are and what you stand for. Strong men understand this. They realize that not everyone deserves an explanation, because not everyone argues in good faith. Some people don't want resolution. They want reaction. And when you stop reacting, you stop being controlled. Think about that. Every time you explain yourself to someone who's not listening, you hand them your power. But when you stay calm, silent, they lose that grip. Your peace starts to scare them, because silence means you're no longer playing their game. That's why emotional maturity looks boring from the outside. No shouting, no proving, no chasing, just calm boundaries. That's real power. Second, he learns who's really for him. The moment you stop explaining yourself, something fascinating happens. The right people stay. The wrong ones panic. The ones who loved your compliance start calling you cold. The ones who manipulated your guilt call you selfish, because now they can't use your empathy as a weapon. But the ones who truly value you, they don't need explanations. They understand your silence. They respect your boundaries. They see that your peace isn't distance, it's discipline. You stop being available for every argument, every drama, every emotional tug of war. You stop playing the role of the fixer. And guess what happens next? You attract people who match your peace, not your pain. You start to notice that life feels lighter, because the noise fades, and you finally realize you don't owe your energy to everyone who demands it. Third, he starts focusing on progress, not proof. Explaining yourself keeps you stuck in the past. You're always defending what already happened. But when you stop doing that, your focus shifts forward. You stop saying, "Let me explain," and start saying, "Watch me work." That's the transformation. Men who stop explaining themselves start building quietly. They channel all that wasted energy into purpose. He doesn't talk about proving people wrong. He just builds a life so strong that even his silence speaks volumes. It's not revenge. It's evolution. You stop needing validation from those who doubted you, because you're too busy becoming who they said you couldn't be. There's something magnetic about a man like that. He's calm, focused, purpose-driven. He's not chasing noise, he's building legacy. Fourth, he becomes emotionally untouchable. When you no longer feel the need to explain yourself, you master one of life's rarest forms of control, emotional independence. You stop letting guilt manipulate you. You stop letting criticism define you. You stop letting other people's confusion become your burden. You realize that silence is not avoidance, it's emotional clarity. You don't owe everyone an answer, especially when they've already made up their mind. Because sometimes the best response is none at all. That silence teaches others that access to you is a privilege, not a right. It resets how people treat you, because the more you explain, the more they test your limits. But when you stop explaining, you teach them, this is where my peace begins. And here's the irony, the quieter you become, the louder your presence feels. Because people start realizing how heavy your absence is. They start respecting the man they once took for granted. Let me tell you something real. The man who constantly explains himself is often just trying to be understood. Not loved, not praised, just understood. But in chasing that understanding, he ends up drained, doubting, and disconnected. When he stops explaining, though, that's when everything changes. He starts trusting himself again. He listens to his intuition. He honors his truth without seeking approval. He realizes that peace doesn't come from being agreed with, it comes from being aligned. And alignment doesn't require an audience. It just requires courage. So if you've been that man, over-explaining, defending, explaining again, take this as your sign. You don't owe anyone a performance. You don't have to narrate your healing or justify your peace. Walk away quietly, live intentionally, build privately, because the man who stops explaining himself finally starts living for himself. Here's the truth most people miss. Your silence will confuse them at first. They'll try to provoke you, question you, even guilt you. But stay calm, because silence is the language of confidence. It means, I've said all I needed to say, now I'll show you. And when you start showing, when your results speak louder than your explanations, that's when you truly rise. So let's bring it together. When a man stops explaining himself, three things happen. He reclaims his power, he filters his circle, and he focuses on building instead of proving. That's how quiet confidence is born. Not from ego but from inner clarity. Not from noise but from discipline. The man who no longer explains himself isn't cold. He's free. Free from the need to be understood by people who never wanted to understand him in the first place. He knows who he is. He knows where he's going. And he knows that peace will never come from being liked, only from being aligned. So here's your challenge. This week, when you feel the urge to over-explain, stop, pause, breathe, and remember, you don't owe everyone access to your thoughts. Explain less. Do more. Let silence carry your message. Because silence, when it comes from a man who knows his worth, is louder than 1,000 words. If this message hit you, drop a brain in the comments to remind yourself, you don't need to be understood to be unstoppable. Like this video if it spoke to your story. Share it with someone who's been explaining themselves to people who never deserve the effort. And subscribe for more deep, honest talks about psychology, mindset, and self-respect. Because the day you stop explaining yourself is the day your real life begins.